Hello and welcome to Star Diary, the podcast from the makers of BBC Sky at Night magazine. You can subscribe to the digital edition of the magazine by visiting iTunes, Google Play or Apple News, or to the print edition by visiting skyatnightmagazine.com.
Greetings, listeners, and welcome to Star Diary, a weekly guide to the best things to see in the Northern Hemisphere's night sky. As we are based here in the UK, all times are in BST. In this episode, we'll be covering the coming week from the 5th to the 11th of August. I'm Ezzy Pearson, the magazine's features editor, and I'm joined today by Katrin Rayner, an astronomer and astronomy writer. Hello, Katrin.
Hi, Ezzy. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. So, what have we got to look forward to in this week's night sky?
Well, the moon is starting to wax again this week, and now is a great time to set your sights on crater Albategnius. This week is also the best time to view the Perseid meteor shower before its peak on the 12th into the 13th. And we also have two minor planets at opposition, and let's not forget noctilucent clouds, although they are starting to tail off now and that we are getting into August. But I'm going to shoehorn just one more mention of NLCs into this.
We'll keep mentioning them as long as we can.
Yeah. I mean, we could just mention them every week anyway, couldn't we? And just say, oh, next year. But yeah, I think people might turn off at that point. So moonrise on the 5th. New moon occurred yesterday on the 4th, and this evening after sunset, a 1% lit waxing moon is low on the west-northwest horizon in the evening twilight. And if you have an unobstructed view in this direction, grab your binoculars to locate the moon and see bright Venus shining close by. But you're going to have to be quick because both the moon and Venus set around 40 minutes after the sun. And on the 9th is at apogee. In other words, its furthest point in its elliptical orbit from Earth, and is a whopping 405,297 kilometres away from us.
That's quite far.
It is, isn't it? It's very far. Compared to when it's closest, it's about 350.
It's about 50,000 is the difference between nearest and closest, which is a lot.
It is a lot, yeah. It's kind of like a distance you can't really fathom, but
it's about, sort of like 10%-ish.
Yeah, and I think, and obviously then it just kind of brings to the forefront then, doesn't it, about the orbit of the moon as well. It's obviously not a perfect circular orbit, it's varying in its distance.
Yeah, no matter how much ancient astronomers tried to make it be a perfect circle, it's not. It's very not. It's actually very few perfect circles when it comes to orbital mechanics. They're almost all ellipses.
Yes, orbital mechanics. I'm sure that's something that sounds very complicated.
Oh, it is.
So yeah, I'll just stick with everything's in an elliptical orbit. It's fine. And on the 10th of August, we have the 33% lit waxing moon near Spica, a variable star in the constellation of Virgo. So they're going to form a lovely pair in the evening sky. So if you want to have a look at these two, locate the moon setting along the southwestern sky, and bright Spica will be close by. Now, Spica is the brightest star in Virgo and shines at a magnitude of less than +1. So if, you're not going to miss it, then obviously you're going to see the moon anyway, because that's going to be quite bright. So Spica is actually a really special star. It's got a long observational history, as you would expect. It's a star that is thought to give Hipparchus, a Greek astronomer, the data that led him to discover the precession of the equinoxes, which is the gradual changing in the direction of the Earth's rotation axis. And a temple in Thebes was built with its orientation towards the star.
Yes. So the precession of the equinoxes is basically the Earth's axis. If you imagine it's sort of spinning on its axis, and that axis does what's called precesses. Basically, it sort of wobbles like a spinning top that's starting to go. And it takes about 30,000 years to go around once. It's something like that. So it's a long change. But if you're paying very, very close attention to the stars over long periods of time, people do notice that, yes, actually, they do appear to be slightly shifting.
I think as well, sometimes it is easy to forget, well, for me anyway, that what we're seeing in the night sky and hearing about, Greek astronomers using particular stars to reach certain conclusions, you kind of forget, oh yeah, actually, thousands years ago, there were people looking at the night sky and formulating hypothesis or proving things correctly. It's amazing.
They didn't necessarily have the tools to make the most precise measurements.
Not at all.
But they found all kinds of strange and wonderful ways to be able to keep track of all of these things, because it was very important to people, partly just because that's how people used it to navigate and tell time, but also a lot of religious significance at the time as well. So it's very important. The star's been important to a lot of people for a very long time.
That's amazing, isn't it? And when you think about, things like Stonehenge, and it is amazing, and something I feel like I should read more up on, the history of astronomy. So the 11th of August. So August's top lunar feature in this month's issue of The Sky at Night is the crater Albert Agnius. It's best seen on the night of the 11th and the 12th. So check out the latest issue for more information on observing this crater. Just give you a brief overview. It is located in the Central Highlands, and there is a lovely central peak on the crater floor to see. And Crater Klein overlies its southwestern rim. Now, there's a really fun clear obscure effect, which will be visible around first quarter, which is on the 12th. So you can look for the face of Albert Agnius. Now, this effect is caused by the shadow of the crater's uneven eastern rim cast onto the crater floor. Yeah, you're going to be able to see a profile of a face on the crater floor, which is pretty cool. I actually feel like sometimes I can see two faces, because I think the crater Klein that overlies the rim and one of the satellite craters and the central peak kind of looks like Pob. Do you remember Pob, the old 80s children's TV program?
I've got the picture up in front of me, and I do know who you mean from that.
So you've got Pob and the face of Albert Agnius on Albert Agnius. So yeah, two faces in one there. So solar system-wise, on the 6th at around 2 a.m, bright Jupiter will shine at a magnitude of -2, whilst Mars and Aldebaran shine at a magnitude of less than 1 to form a lovely celestial triangle in the early morning sky. Now, minor planet 7 Iris, the fourth brightest object in the asteroid belt, is at opposition on the 6th at 7:40 p.m, and it's also going to be at perigee, so it's making its closest approach to Earth. It will be shining at magnitude plus 8.1, so you're going to need your binoculars or a telescope to see this star-like object. And it's currently in the constellation of Aquarius, which is well above the horizon for much of the night. And Iris will be at its highest point above the southern horizon at midnight. And just below Iris, near the constellation of Capricorn, is another main belt asteroid called 16 Psyche, and it's also at opposition. Now, Psyche is 200 kilometers across and is named after the Greek goddess for the soul, Psyche meaning soul. And it is much dimmer than Iris. It's shining a magnitude of plus 9.6. So again, you're going to need some equipment to see this. And if the name sounds familiar, well, just last October, NASA launched a spacecraft to orbit and study Psyche in order to learn more about the origin of planetary cores. And the plan is to orbit the asteroid from August 2029 through to late 2031. And the asteroid is the heaviest known M-type asteroid and composed of metals. It's thought to be an exposed iron core of a failed protoplanet. And if this is interesting to you and you want to read more about Psyche, then you can head over to the Sky at Night website.
I love asteroids and meteors and meteorites and things like that. It's that sort of concept of that you can actually, bits of it that have made it back to Earth, and you can pick up and you can hold something that's been just hanging around in space for billions of years.
It's incredible, isn't it? It's like, again, it's just something that doesn't feel real. We said last week, didn't we, about when you look through the telescope, it doesn't feel real.
No.
But physically, it's like, yeah, this came from space.
Yeah, because a lot of meteorites, basically, they're either the material that never made it into being planets that came together and formed these sort of big rocky bodies. Some of them, like Psyche, started to become a planet or a protoplanet. But then there was a lot of stuff flying around in the early solar system, and they sometimes smashed into each other. And when that happened, all of the bits got split off and sent flying through the solar system, most ending up in the asteroid belt. I have a small meteorite collection.
I was going to ask, do you have a meteorite collection?
I do, because as some people might know, I actually went out to, back in 2013, there was the Chelyabinsk meteor.
Oh, yeah.
And I actually went out to Chelyabinsk.
Did you?
Yes. So I've got one of those that sits on my sits on my desk.
So did you go to find some?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. So I was actually there. I was shooting a documentary, and we went hunting for them through the snowfields. And it was one of those things when you first got it in your hand, it feels so very heavy, because it's, even though that particular meteorite was not very rich in metals, it has a lot of metal in it compared to a regular Earth rock, and it feels so much heavier. And then you get one of the ones which is completely metal meteorite, and it feels like a lump of steel because it's pretty much what it is.
What was your method in finding them and like picking them up?
So one of the best ways to try and find meteorites is to have it fall somewhere that's either completely covered in snow or is a desert, like a pristine sandy desert. That's your best way to find them. In Russia, it was February, it was the middle of winter, so everywhere's covered in this pristine layer of snow. And so if you see like a hole in the snow or a rock lying on top of the snow, you know that didn't jump up from nowhere. It must have come down from the sky. So you look for those holes and then you kind of like dig around them to clear away the snow and then sort of keep scooping down until you come up with the rock.
Was there lots of other people there doing the same thing?
Yeah, there was lots of people that went out in the very, very cold weather digging through the snow. There's actually a lot of people, because I used to know a lot of geologists, and that was one of the things that geologists often went and did, was they went to like Svalbard or somewhere like that and went and dug up all of these asteroids.
That is a very cool story.
But anyway, we better be cracking on with what's up in this night sky.
We went off on a tangent then, but it's relevant. It's a relevant tangent. It's fine. If you are out and you want to spot Iris or Psyche, just a reminder, they're going to look like star-like points of light. So they're going to be tricky to find if you don't know what you're looking for. So between the 9th and the 15th of August, the Perseid meteor shower is very active, and it's going to reach its peak next week from the night of the 12th into dawn on the 13th. Between now and then, it's a great time to see the meteors, probably the best time, obviously, to see them. So the meteor's radiant is in the northern portion of the constellation of Perseus, and this is where the name originates. So you should hopefully be able to see trails and trains left behind by bright meteors and maybe even a fireball or two. And this is one of the best meteor showers of the year, so let's hope there are no clouds to interfere with it.
Always the hope.
But yeah, exactly. It'd always be typical, isn't it? Something happens in the sky, it's cloudy. There's a great meme actually on the internet about, greatest astronomical event of the year, and it's all clouds.
Yeah, and it's just a picture of clouds.
Yeah, and it's like rare clouds to be seen in the sky, and it's just a clear sky. It's typical. It sums it up very well. On the 9th of August, we also have a double shadow transit to look forward to. So 2 of Jupiter's moons, Io and Ganymede shadows, will transit Jupiter between 3:45 a.m. and 4:26 a.m. So if you missed them last week, you've got another chance on the morning of the 9th. So you'll be able to see this transit using small to medium and, of course, larger aperture telescopes. And on the 10th, Saturn reaches its highest position at 3:30 a.m. due south under dark skies at an altitude of around 30 degrees. So if you are out in the early hours observing minor planets, Iris and Psyche, take a look at the ring planet to the east of Aquarius. There's actually a very exciting occultation happening in 11 days' time on the 21st, when the planet will be occulted by the moon. But again, Mary, I'm sure, will tell you all about that in that week's episode. And just to round off, noctilucent clouds. Woo! This may be the last time that they may get mentioned in Star Diary. I'm not quite sure. But, I mentioned this last week. They're starting to tail off now. We're entering August, so we're going to see them less and less. I've seen them since June. If you haven't spotted them yet, then you may still. I'm not quite sure, to be honest, but I'm just going to mention them anyway. Goodbye, NLCs from Catherine Rayner.
Goodbye, NLCs, but you did put on a good show. So definitely there's a lot of things to see in the night sky. We will be back next week with Mary and even more stargazing highlights for people to get to grips with. So do subscribe to the podcast if you'd like to hear those. But to summarise this week again, on the 5th of August, try and catch the thin crescent moon and Venus low in the evening twilight. Then on the 9th, the moon is going to be at apogee. On the 10th, the 33% waxing moon is near to the variable star Spica. On the 11th, August's top lunar feature in the Sky at Night magazine is a crater called Albategnius, so keep an eye out for that one. Moving on to the planets. On the 6th, at around about 2 a.m. in the morning, the bright planet Jupiter, Mars, and the star Aldebaran will form a lovely celestial triangle in the early morning sky. Minor planet 7 Iris is also going to be at opposition on the 6th of August. It will also be at perigee. You will need binoculars or a telescope to see that. It will just appear like a star. The Perseid meteor shower is becoming increasingly active. Between the 9th and the 15th will be at the peak of its activity. It'll actually peak next week into the 12th or the 13th, but at the tail end of this week, it is still worth keeping an eye out for those meteors. Also on the 9th, 2 of Jupiter's moons, Io and Ganymede, will have shadow transits across the face of Jupiter between 3:45 a.m. and 4:26 a.m. On the 10th of August, Saturn will also be reaching very high in the night sky, so definitely worth keeping an eye out for the ringed planet as well. And finally, NLC season is just winding up, so it is really your last chance to get out there and try and see those noctilucent night shining clouds. If you do see any, please do let us know at contact@skyatnightmagazine.com. We always like to hear from you guys. And that's all from us for this week. We'll be back next week, and we hope to see you all again soon. If you want to find out even more spectacular sights that will be gracing the night sky this month, be sure to pick up a copy of BBC Sky at Night magazine, where we have a 16-page pull-out sky guide with a full overview of everything worth looking up for throughout the whole month. Whether you like to look at the moon, the planets, or the deep sky, whether you use binoculars, telescopes, or neither, our Sky Guide has got you covered, with detailed star charts to help you track your way across the night sky. From all of us here at BBC Sky at Night magazine, goodbye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Star Diary podcast from the makers of BBC Sky at Night magazine, which was edited by Lewis Dobbs. For more of our podcasts, visit our website at skyatnightmagazine.com/podcasts or head to Spotify, iTunes, or your favourite podcast player.